Good evening. My name is John Goldberg, and I'll be the hearing officer for tonight's hearing. I work in Public Works, assigned to the ESER bond program. So my job as a hearing officer is to hear both sides of the story, both the department's opinion or position, and then also any protests or objections. What I do is make a recommendation to the acting director, and it's her decision about how to proceed and what to do. She's free to accept, reject, or modify any recommendations I have. I simply ask that when you do identify yourself, state your name, spell the last name for the record. I like to, when I write it up, to make sure that people's names are spelled correctly, and what your relationship is. If you're the owner, the owner's representative, or whatever. So with that, we'll start with item number 2, which is public comment. Members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Hearing none. Cerise, no hands raised. With that, I will close item number 2 and move on to item number 3.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes?
I'm sorry, there is one hand
Okay.
raised, for Clay Jackson. You should be able to speak. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Go
can you
ahead,
hear
Mr.
me?
Jackson. Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, I thought you would ask me at the end. This is in regard to a notice of violation that I received from the department last week in the mail regarding refuse left on the street, threatening me with $1,000 fine if I did not remediate the issue or whatever.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I'll make note of that. This is public comment. There's no necessarily a response, but I would contact whoever the inspector was that issued the citation, find out what the issue is, and try to resolve that.
I have sent a letter to the individual that sent me the her name is Dejida Durden. And my concern is that basically something was stolen off my porch and discarded a block away. And the inspector, or whatever his role is, took a photograph of, this is a pile of refuse where it's a problem area where stuff is constantly discarded. The inspector took a photograph of the parcel that was stolen from my porch, and because it had my name and address on it, I was found to be in violation. And it seems to be based on the assumption that I would have carried a parcel a block from my home when I have a refuse bin at my back porch, and discarded it there with my name and address on it. And
I understand that, sir. This is not something we're able to adjudicate here. So I would just contact the inspector and then discuss it with her and see how this matter can be resolved.
So you're not familiar with the department policy regarding this sort of thing?
Sir, this is public comment. We're not supposed to engage in a debate. It's comment, not discussion.
Okay.
So I would simply direct you to speak with the inspector and try and resolve it.
Right. Okay. I have sent a letter. All right. So
Okay.
I guess
Thank you very much.
That's the extent of it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other items for public comment? Hearing none, we'll close it and move on to item number 3 on the agenda. Hearing order 206822 to consider removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 428 Carl Street. Staff has approved the removal and the public has protested. Department representative.
Thank you, Officer Goldberg. I'm going to go, excuse me. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I'm going to give a brief overview of the Bureau of Urban Forestry's, how we do the removals here. So here we go, and this is it. So can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Great. All right, so Public Works, our goal here when we consider tree removals is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure and the public right of way. So under Article 16, we have to go through the removal process, and the Bureau of Urban Forestry's mission is to preserve and grow the urban forest while also balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. Anytime a tree is removed in the city, it requires a removal permit. Any tree that is within the public right of way, I should say, requires a removal permit, or within 10 feet of the public right of way. So in February 2022, we updated the urban forestry ordinance. And anytime the department removes a tree, a replacement is required. And if we can't replace the tree within 120 days, we will keep a tally of those trees and keep them on a delayed replacement tree report. If a tree can't be replaced in situ, as in like for like or same size or same place, then it will be planted with an equal value tree in a nearby location. And if a property owner or applicant is granted a removal permit, the department shall require a replacement tree of equivalent value to the one removed, or it will impose an in lieu fee for the value of the tree. This is all covered under our street tree SF, including the maintenance of the street trees. So the order, that first order we're discussing today is 206822 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 428 Carl Street. This is a public works sidewalk repair. The staff approved and members of the public have protested. So again, this is adjacent to 428 Carl Street, and the Bureau of Urban Forestry initiated the removal. The tree condition is fair based on the assessment of our arborist. Deficiencies of this tree are mainly root issues. So the tree has had extensive root pruning in the past, mainly on the street side. And the remaining structural roots are on the sidewalk side. The roots were pushing up the sidewalk in this site, and it initiated a repair. And in order to complete that repair, we have to maintain the ADA compliance. And it also should be noted that this tree is in close proximity to a hospital with high pedestrian foot traffic. So if we were going to put the sidewalk back to grade, it would require more extensive root pruning, which will destabilize the tree. Our initial goal was to retain the tree, but after we exposed the surface roots, we found that about 60% of the structural roots that are pretty much holding this tree upright would be needed to be removed. The adjacent owners are willing to apply to plant a new tree and provide a tree, and the Bureau would be required to replace the tree if the adjacent owners don't replace. Here's another photograph of the tree. You can see we have the sidewalk exposed, and we'll get into the roots. So these are the tree roots. Pretty much the rule of thumb is that any root that's within the critical root zone, which is established by the size of the tree, could have the potential, if it's pruned or mutilated or removed, could have the potential to significantly affect the tree's health or destabilize the tree, which will significantly increase its risk for a total failure. So that's the entire tree falling over. So because of this, the Bureau has gone ahead and approved the removal of this tree with replacement. Again, here's some more photos of the tree roots. And you could see on the right side of this picture, here's some prior root pruning that had occurred. And a couple years ago, almost all of the roots in the critical root zone on the street side were also removed. So these two main roots, which would need to be either shaved or completely removed. I don't think shaving is actually an option in this scenario because of the size. We'd have to shave more than 50% of the root, which is not really standard practice. So yeah, removal is mainly the only option left. And again, some more photographs of those large roots, which would not allow us to put the sidewalk back to grade.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
anyone, is the person who protested here available? Seeing none, any members of the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close this item and move on to item number 4, hearing order 206-823, to consider removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 57 Hare Street. The permit application is for 150 Middle Point Road. Staff has approved the removal and the public has protested.
So this tree is a Blackwood acacia tree. It's in fair condition, maybe poor to fair. There's a extensive sucker growth at the base of the tree, which a lot of times indicates stress from the tree. And there's likely decay at the base of the tree from what appears to be maybe being struck by a vehicle or struck by like a lawnmower, large lawnmower. And there has been previous sidewalk repair, so you can assume that some roots in the critical root zone may have been pruned, which is particularly concerning for this species of tree, which doesn't really take root pruning very well. So this tree is under review because it was applied for by a development project, and we went through all of our normal processes when we receive a removal application. So we assessed the tree and reviewed its location and replanting plans. So we found that the tree is actually, we thought it was on public right of way. And after going through our investigation, we found out that the public right of way was vacated back in 2021. So these grayed out areas are actually now non-maintained or not no longer part of the public right of way. So that would put this tree actually now on private property. And because this tree is on public or on private property and not within 10 feet of the public right of way, it's no longer protected under Article 16, which means the applicant can go ahead and remove this tree without a permit. So just as a note, it's a good reminder with large infrastructure projects that we always check our jurisdiction. Is the tree within the public right of way? Is it within 10 feet of the public right of way? And if there's any changes or any recent changes, we'll reach out to our colleagues at the Bureau of Street Use and Mapping, which was the case with this actual application. So with that, we will be closing this case with no need to issue a permit.
All right, is there anyone that wants to speak to this matter and object to the opinion about being within 10 feet of the public right of way? Seeing none, hearing none, then this hearing or this has no jurisdiction on this matter. So we will simply close it. So we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Hearing order number 206-824, to consider the following: removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 351 Valencia Street. Staff approved the removal and the public has protested. Mr. Hoffman? Dan, you're on mute.
Thank you for that reminder.
That's
So this is a London plane tree, our sycamore tree. Fairly good condition. It's been well maintained over the years. Now the reason for removal is there's like an old gas tank or an old storage tank that is directly under this tree. And in order for them to remove that tank, we would need to also remove the tree. So there's a lot of issues with having a tank underground, environmental issues, and long-term problems that can arise from these things being left underground. And the applicant has agreed to replace with an equal value tree. So we've gone ahead and approved removal. You could see here in this photograph that these circular like lids on the ground here are the access points to the storage tank. And you can see that the tank is kind of in between this tree here, which is pretty unfortunate. So what is an underground storage tank anyway? It's something, it's a big piece of infrastructure. It includes pipes and sometimes stores hazardous substances such as oils and other toxic materials that could possibly leak into the groundwater. They can contaminate the area and cause a lot of issues down the line, and if not addressed in a timely manner, can just become more and more of a problem. So the Bureau recognizes that the applicant is trying to mitigate the risk of that, and unfortunately, removal of the tree will be the only way to get the tank out. So again, here's the images of where the tank is, and the tree is pretty much directly on top.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak, or the applicant's representative? Mr. Wall, I see your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Yeah, as Mr. Hoffman just said, we're just trying to complete work for the tanks that are there. This process started some time ago. We actually have 4 tanks that we found out to deal with. 2 of which, nicely enough, have been removed and it was efficiently done. The last 2, which unfortunately sit on right below that tree or on each side of that tree, we're just trying to complete work so the site is environmentally safe. We've been fortunate so far. Wasn't really the ideal thing, but we're completing it, and just basically like to deliver the site as clean as possible. On our application further, just to show the commitment, we've committed to put a tree back. We're happy to listen to a recommendation of a tree that you like to see or whichever, but we just wanted to know that we're trying to do our part to keep things clean and safe. And then it's been brought to our attention also that whoever puts a tree up, that there's a 3-year commitment of maintenance and utility to it to make sure the tree lasts. And we're fine with that. Again, just to take care of that tree and maintain the healthiness of that as well. So it's about where we're at, and hopefully that'll make sense. But the bottom line is we're just trying to deliver that site as clean as possible.
Great. And Mr. Wall, are you the property owner's representative?
I am the owner rep. Our family, yes, but I'm here on behalf of the ownership. I have, as a second speaker, in case there was any technical questions, Brent Wheeler, who's been one of the parties that's overseen the current work so far, if there's any questions that would like to be added or needed.
I have no questions, but if Mr. Wheeler would like to speak, that would be fine. Mr. Wheeler has his hand up. Okay, Mr. Wheeler, yeah, there you go.
Yes, Brent Wheeler, last name Wheeler. I'm the acting environmental consultant for property owner Robert Wall on a site investigation as well as a tank removal. And to reiterate what Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Wall had just said, the underlying reason for removal of the tree was, there is a total of 4 310-gallon underground storage tanks situated, in that eastern sidewalk there fronting the commercial property, 2 of which were removed on May 11th of 2022 by Golden Gate Tank Removal. The 2 other tanks were removed in the 2 inner tanks, the 2 outside tanks of the 4 were removed on May 11th. The 2 inner tanks, of course, remained in place due to the position of the overlying tree. And we, from the get-go, we recommend a removal of all 4 USTs in lieu of abandonment in place to avoid, a scenario that if petroleum contamination was encountered beneath any or all of the tanks, we would be unable to remediate this contamination via excavation and, potentially posing a risk to human health and the environment. And likely impede case closure review by the San Francisco Health Department. And so that's why, we definitely recommend removal of these tanks and of course the overlying tree temporarily until it is replaced.
Okay. Very nice. Thank you very much, Mr. Wheeler.
You're welcome.
Any other speakers for removal? Any speakers regarding a protest?
There are no others.
Okay, and no members of the public?
No.
Okay, then we'll close this matter. And we'll move on to the final item on the agenda. Hearing order number 206825 to consider the following removal of 1 street tree with replacement adjacent to 1294 Palouse Street Avenue. Mr. Hoffman?
All right, thank you. So, having a lag here, so bear with me. Okay, so this is a New Zealand Christmas tree, which has been previously topped and is in pretty high vigor, but really poor structure because of the previous topping event. So in 2008, there's a little history to this site. Palouse Street in 2008, 18, had a street improvement plan, and a number of trees along this area were posted for removal and were planned to be replaced. This tree in particular was posted, but never really got removed. So the Bureau of Urban Forestry received many appeals to removals, and because of that, we just didn't remove some of them. We removed kind of the worst condition ones and the ones that were in severe decline, but anything that was kind of healthy, in quotes, healthy, were left. So this was one of those trees. And in 2021, last year, a number of blocks received brand new magnolia trees in completion of the streetscape project. So in 2022, the adjacent property owners to this tree reached out to us and asked, hey, why didn't we get a new tree? So unfortunately, this tree was poorly maintained, as you can see by the rounding off. So rounding off is not really an approved pruning method. It allows a lot of opportunity for decay to form in the old cuts. And when the branches do grow back, they become a much higher risk for failure. So in order to maintain this tree, it will require yearly, if not bi-yearly pruning to keep it compliant with the street side clearance and the sidewalk clearance. And because of a lot of other issues involving this area of the city, you know, it's just kind of a part of the city that was overlooked by a lot of people. And, you know, we want to do our best to kind of make that right and work with the adjacent property owners here and have a much better relationship. So because of the poor the poor topping of this tree and kind of the new trees that were down the block, we've approved this tree for removal with replacement. And again, this slide is just to show kind of the new growth and how it just will continue to overtake the street side and the sidewalk side. And I do believe that this photograph was also taken after we had done some light pruning for the street side and the sidewalk side on request from the property owner. And here's a photograph of some of the new magnolias that the neighbors received and the older trees that had deferred removal. So because of that, we've approved removal with replacement. And we will replace with the magnolia species that's consistent with the rest of the block.
Great, thank you. Are there any, is the person who filed the protest, want to speak? Any members of the public wish to speak? Hearing none, then we'll close this item. And that will conclude our meeting for today. What I will do is I will write this up and send this off to the acting director, Carla Short, and then it'll be up to the acting director to decide what to do. And then honestly, I don't know how she sends out the information, but somehow the information gets out to the public about her decision. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for their time tonight and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And what will happen is the director will make her decision, and then the decisions will be emailed to you or sent to you in the US mail as well. So if we do not have your email address, please do email us and make sure we have it on file. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cerise.
Thank you.